Hey guys, welcome back to the channel. In this series, we're covering the book Chess for Dummies by American chess master James Eade. So this is lesson number 2. If you missed lesson number 1, I'll put the link in the description so you can watch it. We're starting from basics and we'll go to advanced chess concepts as well. So the author says that there are 5 elements that are the basic building blocks of the chess game. And if we can master all of those elements and their relationship with each other in every given position, we will have obtained chess mastery. So, we're going to discuss the elements one by one. In today's lesson, we're going to discuss the first element of chess, that is space. In this video, we will discuss what is space and its basic terms and basic things about it. And then I will show you how can you control space from the starting of the game. And finally, I will tell you 9 laws related to space, which if you remember and you apply, you can truly master space. So let's begin. Chess is really a game of spatial conquest. If all things are equal, the player who has more space will win the game. The reason behind this is quite simple. Well, when you have more space, your pieces can easily maneuver throughout the board. Whereas if you have less space, then you can't get the right piece to the right place at the right time. Imagine that you are in a battlefield and your soldiers just keep getting in your way while you're trying to get to the opponent's king. Now, what is space? Space refers to the number of squares your pieces are controlling. By control, I do not mean the squares on which my pieces or pawns are present. By control, I mean the squares on which my pieces can go on the very next move, or the squares on which my pawns can capture on the very next move. For example, this knight over here can move to these 2 squares on the right next move, so it's controlling these 2 squares. Now, what if your opponent's piece is also controlling a square? For example, this square here is controlled by the knight and also by this pawn, because this pawn can capture on this square. So, if this type of situation occurs, then no one gets to claim it as their space. The best way to determine who controls a square is to count the number of your pieces attacking that square and the number of your opponent's pieces defending it. For example, in this case, this square, if you're playing as white, one piece is attacking it like this, and there's one defender like this. So when there are equal number of attackers and defender, then no one gets to claim it as their space. But for example, black on the next move plays this move, bringing his knight out, then there is one attacker here, but 2 defenders. So there are 2 defenders, that is why this square is now controlled by black. So now we will discuss what is a cramped position. Now for example, let's take the example of this position. In this position, white cannot freely move because this queen cannot go to any of these squares because it will be captured. These rooks here, these are blocked by their own pawns and they cannot move freely, and they can only move freely to these 3 squares, and that doesn't matter. And both of these bishops, they're jammed behind their own pawns. They're not covering anything. And this knight isn't doing much. It can only go to this square, and this is not even that active. So white is in a cramped position. If you don't have much space, then your position is cramped. Now white is in a cramped position. It cannot move to much squares. It cannot maneuver its pieces easily. So its position is called cramped. Now what is a cramping move? A move that secures a spatial advantage for you by restricting your opponent's space is called a cramping move. For example, if black here just plays this move, now the knight is attacking the queen. So look closely. The queen cannot go to this square because it will be captured by the bishop. It cannot go here because it will be captured by the knight. It cannot go here because it will be captured by the pawn. It cannot go here because it will be captured by this pawn, and cannot take here because it will be captured by the king. And here it will be captured by the pawn, and here it will be captured by the pawn. So every square is fatal for the queen. So only square that is safe is this square. And now look what have you done. You've restricted the queen back to a corner. So now this black knight is controlling these important squares, and Now white has much less space than black, so this is called a cramping move. Whereas a freeing move, what is a freeing move? Freeing move is the move that gains back space. For example, in this case, white can play this move, because when this pawn takes, white can take back, and now this bishop is open, it's attacking the queen, it can move freely to these squares. And if white can make one or two more of these freeing moves, white's position will be much better. So this is called a freeing move. Okay, so now we discussed about space. Now we will discuss that how can we control space from the opening of the game. Well, you must remember that space is more crucial in the opening and middle game than it is in the end game. If you don't know what is opening, middle game or end game, don't be worried, we're going to cover all that in the series. Okay, so from the starting of the game, for example, in this situation, both sides have equal space. These 4 ranks are white's territory, okay? And these 4 ranks are black's territory. Now, white is not controlling black's territory, and black is not controlling white's territory, of course, because it is the starting position. Now, white has the advantage of the first move. A very common move for white is pushing the king's pawn up 2 squares. Now, the reason behind this is that this pawn is now controlling these 2 squares, which are in the black's territory. So, white having the first move has a temporary spatial advantage. But right on the next move, black plays a move by pushing his pawn, king's pawn, up 2 squares as well. Now look closely. This pawn is controlling these 2 squares, and this pawn is controlling these 2 squares. So this is called a dynamic equilibrium in chess. Here, the position is again equal. The number of squares controlled by both sides is equal. Now white has the advantage of the first move, but you have to play in such a way, when you're playing as white, you have to play in such a way that black can't simply copy your moves. Because if black would always copy your moves, then the game would end in a draw. Now, how to do that? So it is a bonus tip. It's not mentioned in the book, but it's a bonus tip. Look closely. What if white brings his knight out, then black brings his knight out, just copying? Then white can play this move. If black plays this move, you capture over here, black copies and capture over here, of course. Now, the trick is to give a check. Check is an attack on the king. And you must remember that whenever the king is attacked, you have to do something about it, because you can't lose the king, because you will lose the game. So white can just capture black's queen like this. Now white has not only captured black queen, but it's also attacking the king. So the king has to capture it back like this. So now you would say that what just happened is just nothing, because white just captured black's queen and black just captured white's queen. But no, something has happened. Look at the position. The position is now different. White's king is on the E1 square, while black's king is on the D8 square. So this position is not the same as it was before. Black has also lost the right of casting. If you don't know what's that, don't worry about that. We're going to cover that as well in the series. So after this position, you can also try to give more checks so that the position will be different, and you have to remember that you have to control more space. Now, the basic principle to control more space in the opening is to control the center. By center, I mean these 4 squares. This is the small center. You have to control it. The player who controls the center controls the game. So how do you control the center? The best way to control the center is start by pushing a pawn in the center like this, which white does. And black can respond with this. The other thing you have to remember is that you have to maneuver your minor pieces towards the center. Now, what are minor pieces? Minor pieces are knights and bishops. Bishops, knights. You have to maneuver them towards the center, because minor pieces are more powerful when they are towards the center, because they are controlling the central squares. For example, then white can get his knight out, the other knight out, for example, then the bishop out, and then the other bishop out as well. and white will have a strong center controlling all of these squares, all of these squares. Yeah, so white will have a pretty strong center. So you have to control the center, and you can control the center by bringing in your minor pieces towards the center so that they attack on the center. Now, what you have to do is you have to prevent your opponent from doing it as well. You have to do it in such a way that you must prevent your opponent, because let's see, if white plays this move and black just responds with this move, okay? Then what you can do is get 2 pawns in the center. So having 2 pawns in the center is very, very good for you. We weren't able to do that before because there was a pawn on this square. So if you push this pawn up, it would always take it. But now if black is just doing some random move like this, you can get 2 pawns in the center, and now look at it. They're controlling all of these 4 important squares. Okay. Then what you can do is to bring your knight out, bring your other knight out. And look at that. Black is just pushing these pawns, which is doing nothing, and you will have a strong center. So if you don't get your minor pieces out, you're just pushing the pawns, it's not very good for you, but you have to control the center by maneuvering your minor pieces. The other thing about space is that you have to maintain space. Well, getting your pieces to the enemy territory is good, but it is not good if they are cut off from the rest of your pieces. You have to keep the supply lines open. What am I saying is that, for example, the game starts like this. Okay. And white says, oh yes, I can bring this knight over here. It can control these squares, and these are in the opponent's territory. But wait a tick, white forgot that this queen can take it. So now white has just lost a piece. So what white can do is just first push this pawn, and now, for example, black plays just a random move, and now white can go here. And now the queen cannot take it because the bishop is supporting the knight. So now you can say that the knight is on an active square. So you have to keep the supply lines open. It's not like you get your pieces towards the opponent's territory and then your all pieces can be captured. Now we've discussed all about space, how to control it. Now I will share 9 laws with you about space. If you master these laws, you can just master space. So law number 1 says that use your center pawns to gain space in the early phase of the game. Okay? You have to use your center pawns early on. Okay? Like I showed you, pushing these pawns gains space. Law number 2 says that you have to maneuver your minor pieces towards the center. We just discussed all about that. Law number 3 says that invade only if you can support your pieces. In other words, keep a piece's lifelines open or don't go there in the first place. Just like I showed you that if you get the knight over here and it's cut off from the rest of your pieces, it will be captured. So the same thing is written in this law. Next is, if your opponent is cramped, try to prevent freeing moves. Okay, this is an important one that, for example, in this situation, if your opponent is cramped, like black's opponent, that is white is cramped, so you have to prevent freeing move. You don't have to go with freeing move that opens up the situation because you have a special advantage, and if you make freeing moves, then that advantage will be lost. Law number 5 says that exchange pieces when you are in a cramped position. For example, if you're playing as white, then you should exchange your pieces, like these pawns are exchanged, the position is free. So law number 5 says that if you are in a cramped position, then you should exchange pieces so that your position is open. Law number 6 says that control the center before attacking on the wings. So what is the wings? Wings are on the side of the boards. This is the king side and this is the queen side. So these sides are called wings and this is the center, okay? So law number 6 says that you have to attack the center before attacking on the wings. Like I showed you that white is attacking the center, but black is just attacking the wings. like this. Now black is doing a big mistake. Now black is doing a big mistake. You have to control the center before you control the wings. Law number 7 says, if your opponent is attacking on a wing, strike back in the center. Yeah, it's the same concept that if your opponent is attacking on the wings, you should strike back in the center, like bringing your minor pieces, pushing your pawns in the center, so you have a big center. Law number 8 says, after you gain control of a square in enemy territory, try to occupy the square with a knight. Now, this is an important one. For example, this is a common move like this. Now, if you can see that white has control of this square because it's attacked by the knight, it's attacked by the pawn, both of these pieces are attacking it, so it's controlled by white. So when you seize control of a square in enemy territory, you should control it by the knight, because the knight is a very, very powerful attacker. You have to remember it, that white is a very powerful attacker. It can control many squares at the same time. Look at that. So when you gain a control of a square in enemy territory, you have to occupy it with your knight. And law number 9, the final law, says that you have to prevent your opponent from following these laws. It's a simple law that you should follow these laws, but play in such a trick that your opponent cannot follow these laws and make good moves, and only then you will win. So this was all for today. I hope you liked the lesson. The next lesson will be uploaded soon, inshallah. That's all for today.